is up, you beautiful bastards? I am your host of Boatman and Vail, and welcome to another exciting episode of Nerdgasm. Two guys that had very deep runs in our reiteration of the tournament. Robert the Hobbit Parker taking on Mr. VHS himself, Nazario Montenegro. Winner of this match is going to be getting a number one contenders match sometime in early 2020, where they'll be playing one of the rookies who will be making their way through the rungs. But before we get to our competitors, let's introduce our judges. Often considered the third man in our Nerdgasm stress relief room quadrilogy or pentalogy, depending on who you ask. That is one Kaleb Koho. Kaleb, how do you feel about this match?
Why did you say that name? You said the third man in reference to me and Boatman's here. I'm triggered. But I'm excited to see this go down. One of these guys kicked my ass. One of these guys have kicked their ass in a different debate league. So I know firsthand how well these two can debate. So it'll be very interesting to see how they face off against each other.
And yes, I did say the third man because I wanted to use that as a segue to introduce our next judge, a fellow member of the New British Empire, also won one of our rookie debuts to begin season 2. That is Little Boar or Little Boat, Kaleb Boatman. How do you feel?
Yes, I feel very good. This will be very, very interesting. I am, of course, Nazario's manager in this case and Robert's manager. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have made that joke. I apologize. I should be flogged for even suggesting that I'm anyone else.
Did you ask permission? Did you ask permission to use that jab? How dare you, sir?
I am sorry. You may threaten violence against me, because that's okay.
Well then, let's get into the minds of our competitors, starting off with my favorite son, Robert the Hobbit Parker. Robert, a little behind-the-scenes action here. You are a little under the weather. Will you be making a Michael Jordan flu game performance, or will you be coming down with the sickness?
We will find out. I am quite ill this evening, but I'm prepared nonetheless. I am ready to nerdgasm all over this place. I have my answers prepped, at least a little bit. And I know Nazario is no slouch. He's a good fighter, so I'm ready to see what I can do against him in the debate league.
Well, best of luck to you, sir, and your competitor, like I said earlier, Mr. VHS Nazario. Now, Nazario, your only loss in Nerdgasm happens to be to the champion. That is a pretty astonishing thing. The only other person that can say that is actually the person that you're competing against. How do you feel going up against Robert today?
I think my ass still hurts from the whipping I got. Well, I was like 3-0 a few months ago. I'm thinking rematch in the future. So I'm excited to try this again. Might be a little rusty. I haven't done it in a while. I'm a little tired too. But that's okay because it balances out with his sickness.
All right. Well, let us get right into it. These guys got to pick 3 categories from the various realms of fandom. They got wow. I am just having a field day in terms of hosting. So each prep question is going to have a 1-minute opening followed by 5 minutes of freeform and then a 4.5-second closing. It is going to be a race to 3 points. There are 3 prep and 2 speedrun questions if need be. But let's get right into it here with question number 1. First category that I was picked was Star Wars, and the question is, what is the best fight scene in the Star Wars Disney era? So this is the new trilogy plus Rogue One. We are going to start off with Robert on this question. You have 1 minute for your opening statements.
Absolutely. So when I think about fight scene, I think about not only something that is visually stunning in elements like the CGI, the choreography, those kind of things, but I also think kind of what fits into the story, what kind of has those kind of elements, those story elements that really make sense in the context that the fight takes place. And with that, you got to go the end of Rogue One. You got to go Vader's fight scene in the hallway with the rebels as they're trying to get the plans away from him. This is a fight scene that not only shows the malice and the true villainy of the Vader character, but we also get some really badass fight moments. We see the terror from the rebels from the time they're trying to fight back to the time that they just want to get the plans through the door. It really carries a lot of emotional weight in the film. Because we we just saw the destruction of Scarif. Basically, like this is a really big deal. Like it makes sense in the context of the story. Every place that the characters are in, both their locations. So we see, like in New Hope, we understand why Vader is now tracking them at the start. It really just fits in with the context of the Star Wars universe very well.
All right, All right, over to Nazario for your opening statement. What you feel is the best fight scene in the Disney Star Wars era?
I went with a different thing. I went with an actual fight. I went with the Kylo Ren and Rey versus the guards in Last Jedi. I love this scene because I feel it's kind of like the heart of the film. It embodies it's like the total concept of everything that's come before. They finally face against Snoke, and then the twist happens and they start. It also shows great choreography between at least 8 characters, if you count all the 6 Praetorian guards, plus Rey, plus Kylo. And it actually turns the story into something different than what we were expecting. I feel like it's not only a good fight, it's not only an entertaining fight, it shows new ideas, it shows new weapons that we haven't learned before and seen before, and it also moves the story forward, showing a great balance between these two forces from light and dark.
All right. Excellent. Let's move into the freeform. You guys know the drill. There are 2 rules in freeform: no touching of the hands or face, and no filibustering. We like a good pendulum debate style. 30 seconds in, 30 seconds out. Say your piece, rebut, and then get out of there. We will call you a filibustering if need be, but 5 minutes, gentlemen. Let's get it on.
Okay, so your fight doesn't move the storyline. Your fight doesn't bring new ideas. It's the seconds before your fight that does that. The killing of Snoke does that. That's not where your fight starts. Your fight starts right after that moment. That moment is not included in your fight whatsoever. You're also talking about the balance of light and dark. That's when they start fighting each other, not when they're fighting the guards. Also not part of your fight. Your 2 biggest moments were parts outside of your scene.
Excuse me, but I said when they fight the guards and each other.
Not in your opening, you didn't.
It's one scene, and that is the concept of what I'm talking about. You are pitching the Vader scene at the end of Rogue One, which is not even a fight. That is the attack of Michael Myers at the end of Halloween.
That's semantics, though. It was acceptable.
It's one unstoppable force just running through everybody, which is a bunch of people that you do not care about because they are not meaningful to the story. And you don't even get any surprises because you know where this is happening. You know where it's going. Vader is just going to sweep through everything and kill everybody, and that's it. It just looks cool, but it's not even a fight.
That doesn't make it a bad fight. You're saying that it's not a fight. That's not a valid argument at all. It was accepted by the judges as a fight, as an answer to the question. That itself is not an argument against my scene. It is incredibly visually stimulating. It's a very stunning fight. The choreography is very good. Yours also has one of the biggest editing mistakes in any Star Wars film ever. You mentioned those new weapons. One of the guards swings one to kill Rey, stab her in the back, and the next frame it disappears out of sight because the guard would have just killed Rey. It is one of the biggest flaws, one of the most painstaking sore thumbstick outs of any fight ever in film history, and it brings your entire scene down. It does not. Your scene itself.
So you're going to go nitpick on a technicality. The whole scene.
And editing mistakes. Yeah, that's not technicality.
Let Nazario talk. Yeah.
It shows actual efficient guards in the first place because they actually defend themselves and are balanced against 2 Jedi power characters. They show a lot of original ideas. They show at least 3 different kind of weapons. They have the staff, they have the sword, and they have the chain links. And they balance out because it makes it interesting when 2 opponents can balance each other out. You think that they have a shot at actually doing some damage to the characters. In your idea, you know nothing is going to happen because Vader is just going to run through everybody.
That doesn't make it not compelling, though. We see the malice of Vader's character for the first time ever in the Star Wars series. People always say Vader's one of the best villains in movie history, and just by watching the original trilogy, honestly, you don't really get that much. You don't get the physicality of this character until Rogue One. It's the moment everybody has been waiting for. You want to see Vader show off what he can do as a true Sith Lord, and this is the moment that you get that. That's what makes it a compelling fight. That's what makes it a compelling scene in the context of the
technicality, because he was already Darth Vader when Anakin was killing kids at the end of Episode 3. So if you're just going with the masked version, maybe, but Darth Vader already demonstrated that he's an evil bad guy, and that doesn't have to be in the context.
I'm not talking about his demonstration as a villain. I'm talking about his physicality, his malice. We've never seen him in a fight until
my fight is actually great because it balances out. You can see them finding ways to figure out each other and working as a team. And when the fight They beat the guards, then they turn on each other because she thinks he's gonna go with her, and he thinks she's gonna go with him. And then they are so evenly matched that they start using the force against each other. And you can have one of the most beautiful scenes in the movie when they actually are trying to fight for the lightsaber until it breaks in half and equally push them both apart. Because it's a scene where it brings them together and ends up pushing them apart. It not only shows originality with the fight with the guards and decent guards for once, it also a good choreography, and it balances out the movie because it moves forward.
It doesn't move forward, though. Literally, all it does is backtrack on everything. They kill Snoke, which isn't part of your scene. That moves the movie forward. Then they backtrack on that by doing the stupid Rey parents reveal. It does not push the movie forward. All it does is raise more questions and backtrack on its own story. Not to mention the you talked about the new ideas thing. Sorry. Oh god, I need more notes. And not only does it that lightsaber shot is good, but all it does, that scene in general, the second half of that fight when it's Rey versus Kylo, all that is a retread of when it was done better at the end of Force Awakens. That part of the fight is nowhere near as good as the Force Awakens fight. The fight against the guards is horrible because first off, Snoke is the most powerful. Snoke is one of the most powerful beings ever. Why does he need guards? That just doesn't make sense in the context of the film. And then
every film had Praetorian guards. The Emperor had Praetorian guards, and he was a lot stronger than Snoke. That is just looking for excuses not to like the thing. What I'm telling about your scene is that it has no stakes. You know where it's going to go from A to B to C because it is part of a story that was already told. And like I said, it's a monster scene in a horror film. He just runs through people that you do not care about, that do not mean anything to the story. And you know what's going to happen before it happens.
Time.
Looks pretty.
All right. Judges, please remove looks pretty from the official record of the freeform. You're not going to go into the closing arguments. We're going to start off with Nazario. You got 45 seconds. Be sure to wrap up the arguments accordingly and present it to us.
My scene is a complex scene. It's a mix of emotions. They start from a place where they do not expect to be joined together, and they end up working together. It shows Praetorian guards being efficient for the first time in a movie. It shows different kinds of weapons that are innovative to the story. It makes them fight with things they have. They lose the lightsaber, and he has to defend himself without it. And Rey helps him in the end. They balance them out. And then it takes a turn because each of them expect them to keep working together when you realize that this is not where their story is going. And then they fight each other. Two equally strong force users that try to convince each other to turn on the other direction. And his scene, like I said, is basically just a monster film. It just runs over everybody. A lot of people you don't care about. Doesn't have any weight.
Time. All right. Now over to Robert for your closing arguments and to wrap up the question.
The only dig that you've made against my fight is that you know where it's going and he runs over people. Some of the best fights in film history are exactly that. Some of the biggest battles in film history. You look at stuff from Lord of the Rings. You look at stuff from other historical epics. You look at stuff from other Star Wars movies. You know where the fight at the end of Revenge of the Sith is going to go. That doesn't make it a bad fight. That it was an accepted answer. Just because it is one-sided doesn't mean that it's not an impressive fight, not something that we as fans have wanted to see for a long time. All yours did was raise more questions. Mine answered them in the context of the Star Wars story.
All right. Well, that was a great question. I've really enjoyed the back and forth. There was a little bit of filibustering, but we caught it. We caught it pretty early. We're gonna go to judges now for their decision. I'm gonna go first. I think this question was a really good example of how you don't really have to defend. I guess I found neither competitor really defended the other person's jab, so it's really just a matter of offense and who had the best offense. I'm gonna give my point to Robert. I think Robert was really able to just really nitpick Nazario's entire fight, and I think that his overall haymakers sort of overcome Nazario's jabs. I think Nazario had some good jabs, but I just need to hear a little bit more. But I'm not the only judge here. I'm going to go over to Mr. Koho. Who gets your point and why?
It was close, but I think I'm going to lean Nazario. I think with Nazario and his argument, he had one major haymaker that I think Robert probably needed to defend a little bit more, which was on the point of the emotional like resonance within each scene, and how his was more emotionally complex, and how his actually like you felt for the characters. It had a lot of weight to the story. Robert never really attacked that too much, and he went more instead for how, like nitpicks within that scene, or as Robert's hit of how like, or the hit on Robert about how we don't care about those guards really kind of hurt the argument for me. So 51-49, I'm going to go Nazario on this one.
All right. Well, Mr. Boatman, you are here to break the tie. Who gets the first point of the match?
You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. I'm going to be giving the point to Robert here. I think that Nazario had really good arguments about like knowing where the fight was going, but then Robert kind of threw that back at his face and during the last argument, or the closing with, oh, well, you know, Lord of the Rings, all these other great fights, cinematic fights have that. And so it was really that big defense that really shifted the scales in Robert's favor. But it's like 51-49, really. Both good arguments, very close.
All right. Well, let's get right into question number 2 then, as Robert does get the first point of the match. We're now going to go to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a little-known franchise in the comic book world. And the question is as follows: what villain that the MCU killed off should come back? A lot of great acceptable answers here, but we did have to narrow it down to 2. Nazario, we're going to be opening this question off. You have a minute. The floor is yours.
I think if you're gonna pick somebody to come back, it has to make some kind of sense within the story. You have to find a possibility of why would it bring back and why would it be a threat again. So I decided to go with a villain that I felt was not underutilized, but I mean, it had more potential than it ended up having, which is Ultron from Age of Ultron. I think it's a villain that poses a big enough threat to matter and reason to a bunch of Avengers to join back and fight him one more time. And I think it's a villain that you can bring back as some kind of mid to high tier villain to propel the Phase 4 story, which seems to be pushing more to the galactic stuff. And I can expand on it later.
All right. Over to Robert as he gets nice and hydrated. We always encourage quenched vocal cords, I guess, in Nerdgasm. But your opening statements.
So when I think about characters coming back to life, it's something that a lot of franchises get stuck in the mud kind of these days. So to really justify it, you have to hit a few major checkboxes. There's a few major points you have to realistically and like in the context of the story and make it like feasible and acceptable for a character to come back. You have to have it where it makes sense that the character is actually still alive and that they're not dead. You have to have it make sense in the context of the story where the characters that are still around would still have some kind of impact by this villain. And then you also have to have potential for the future. The MCU is no longer trying to do like movie one-off villains. At this point, they're investing in the future of their phases. So you have to have it really be able to stretch throughout a lot of potential. There has to be a lot of potential. For these reasons, I'm going with Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, because I think it makes sense for him to still be alive. There were a lot of projections at the end of Far From Home. Very much makes sense for him to still be alive. And there's so many different avenues that you can take this character in the future.
All right, cool. All right, gentlemen, 5-minute freeform. You guys know the drill. Let's go.
I don't think any villain has been worth repeating in a single film. And you're picking one that is actually a very complicated way to bring back, because the way they set up Mysterio in Far From Home, it's not just him. It's a whole team of people. It's like 40 people. Even if you want to bring him back for something like Sinister Six, it wouldn't be Sinister Six. It would be Sinister 46, because you need to appreciate the whole bunch of people who actually form what you know as Mysterio. Ultron, however, by himself, he's a digital entity. He can be revived very easily, and then he can realize that his whole mission of protecting the Earth was on the right track because the Avengers failed when Thanos came.
So you say he's a digital entity. They made an extremely specific point at the end of Age of Ultron that we shut him out of the net and not one single robot can survive. There is, if you watch Age of Ultron, there is no feasible way that Ultron is still alive. there's no way that makes any sort of sense that character is still alive. Not to mention that, but all of the characters that had emotional weight to Ultron, Iron Man, Hulk, Vision, they're all gone. They're no longer. Scarlet
Witch is still an integral part, and you're talking about propelling the story forward. You can easily write away that the digital form of Ultron still survive, even if
you can't say that. They literally made a note to say that you cannot do that at the end of Age of Ultron.
You can write any character back. We're talking about dead characters here, and you're looking at nitpicking if you cannot find one copy of a digital entity. He comes back
because they made a note. The movie said that you can't do that. I'm talking about the context of the story, my guy.
He's a perfect villain to face a new team of Avengers with people who, yes, Iron Man is gone, Captain America is gone, but those are the people who are actually equipped to defeat him. He can now use his new presence to fight the younger versions, and like you said, propel the story forward. He can easily turn into the shape of Vision and turn Scarlet Witch into something that can help him propel his mission. In fact,
all you're doing is trying to back
him.
We gotta let Robert talk here.
All you're doing is backtracking the story to where it was in 2015, and that's not what the MCU is trying to do anymore. Any character that had an emotional weight to Ultron is extremely different than they were in Phase 2, and all you would be trying to doing is backtracking on nostalgia. Plus, the movies in the context of the MCU made a specific, extremely specific point to say that Ultron is gone completely. Quentin Beck has way more potential than Ultron. All you're saying is Ultron could fight the next series of Avengers. Of course, yeah, any villain could. If you're gonna bring in a big mega power to fight the new series of Avengers, why not have it be somebody who's actually complex? Why not have it be somebody who has a great performance in the film? I like James Spader and all, but Ultron that was a weird take on the character. Why you could go Sinister Six with Mysterio, you could go him versus Spider-Man more of the solo.
Jake Gyllenhaal was a good actor in the movie.
All I'm saying is that any context that you bring Ultron back, whether it's the emotional context of the characters that were related to him or physically the feasibility of bringing him back to life in the first place, neither of those two things fit for Ultron. They both do for Mysterio.
Like I said, Scarlet Witch is still connected to him. If he takes the form of Vision, it can connect to her feelings for Vision and actually propel
they connected?
Forward. If you make a bridge to the new WandaVision show, make an
How are they connected? How are Wanda and Vision connected?
Your character, like I said, is an army of people. If you just bring Quentin back, he doesn't even have Edith anymore. And Edith was the only thing that maybe would allow him to be Mysterio by himself. If he doesn't have Edith, he needs a team of people. What is going to be the excuse? As soon as Spider-Man sees him coming back, he's going to know it's fake. And he has Edith. So he's going to figure out how to deactivate the whole thing like it happened at the end of Far From Home. What is the new logic?
You're talking about the team of people? Those are the people who created Edith. He invented Edith. Of course they have a way of bringing that back into the fray.
If they were able to be bringing that back, why didn't they just make another one? They just tried to figure out how to steal the one that he left for Spider-Man.
They could do that too. That's a great point. They could do either one of those two. That's a very good point. See how there's avenues for potential?
They couldn't do it. That is why they tried to steal it, man.
There's avenues for potential for this character. There are not for yours. I'm sorry. You're trying to say that Scarlet Witch and Ultron are related? No, they're not.
Give me what is your avenue of potential? If any of it
didn't say pitch a story. It just said which villain could be brought back.
Without having the team, and he already tried to have the team, and it doesn't work.
This was not a pitch which specific story you're going to go with. It was pick which villain could be brought back. And I think that mine has the most potential as well as the most emotional weight in the story compared to Ultron, where the series made a specific point that your character cannot be brought back.
To be a mid-tier villain that can propel the story.
Oh boy, that was a back and forth.
Yeah.
Not your greatest, but not your worst. Let's get into some closing arguments right quick. I'm going to start off with Robert. You have 4 seconds to wrap up your arguments and present them accordingly.
So with both feasibility and potential of bringing an old character back, Ultron does not check either of those boxes. All of the characters that had any emotional stake in the Ultron storyline are now either dead or completely different from where they were then. You would not be pushing the story forward. All you would do would be backtreading, and that's not what the MCU audience wants to see right now. When we talk about feasibility and potential, Mysterio is the definition of both of those. It would be very easy to say, oh, he didn't die. It was whether it be projections or drones, all of these things. There is an easy way to say that so if you're talking about an army of people, okay, then we can go, that could be a route that we go. We could go Sinister Six. We could go this way. There is potential for this character that there is not with Ultron.
All right. And now over to Nazario to finish up the question.
What I'm saying is that he has nothing to offer. Quentin Beck by himself has nothing to offer. He needed all those teams of people to even make the Mysterio fakeness work. And why would even anybody of the Sinister Six, who are actual villains with actual individual capabilities, bring somebody who cannot do anything by himself? And you talk about propelling the story forward. What are you gonna do with Mysterio? What are you gonna do with this guy who has no power, is not smart enough to carry anything by himself? What is going to be his excuse to move the story forward? And like I said, we're going to the Galactic universe. You can use Ultron, like I'm suggesting, as a bridge of the story, just to push it forward. And yes, Scarlet Witch, for more than you say, is really connected to him because she was the one that started in his original plan. And he can just take the shape of Vision, and that would connect her emotions there and project to the TV show that they already announced, which she basically creates a Vision to live with him.
Time. Okay, that was a heated argument to say the least. But we'll get over to the judges now for their decision. Boatman, you broke the tie last time. I'm gonna go to you first. Who gets your point and why?
I'm gonna be honest. The back and forth kind of rough. There was a lot of talking over. A lot of there were some parts that were just kind of hard to understand because two people were talking at the same time. That said, I think Robert did pull it out because Robert made it sound like there was more like room for Mysterio to actually re-enter the MCU, whereas he kind of shut down all pathways for Ultron to come back in. So Robert's getting my vote on this one.
I'm gonna go next. I actually disagree with you. I think Nazario had some really good. I guess would be a takedown defense for everything that Robert sort of attempted for. I think Nazario had really good comebacks for all of them. Just how he was able to sell myself personally on how Mysterio is really reliant on so many on other things. I think Robert did have a bit of a defense for that, but I think there just wasn't quite enough to sell me over it. But once again, we are tied, but it is Mr. Koho that's breaking the tie. Who gets your point and why?
Fun. I didn't hear a lot, if I'm honest, because of a lot of the crosstalk. So I had to go based on the little bits that I was able to pick out of here and there. And the person who gave me more hits on the other person while also giving me a good defense of theirs was Nazario. I think Nazario was able to defend how there was a way for Ultron to come back while also attacking how Mysterio is reliant on a lot of other factors. Robert's points about Ultron being specifically destroyed, I think Nazario had a good comeback. WandaVision could easily retcon that. We've seen retcons in the MCU. So I think Nazario did a good job of defending it, so he'll get my point on this one.
All right. Well, we are tied up as we go into question number 3, which seems to be everybody's meh category in fandom, which is Disney live action. And the question is as follows. What is the best performance in a Disney live action remake? We're going to be starting off with Robert on this one. 1 minute, and the floor is yours.
All right. I'm going to go with a performance that is extremely layered, that the character has an arc that is extremely visible through the performance, not just through the screenplay, and a performance that I think carries the highest emotional weight of any performance in Disney live-action remake, and that's Ewan McGregor and Christopher Robin. I think not only the difficulty of having to act against CGI characters, but the fact that he excelled at that so high, and was able to bring this character, the adult version of exactly who you think an adult Christopher Robin would look like, back to life. You really see the childlike innocence in his eyes whenever he's talking to Pooh or any of the other gang from the 100 Acre Wood. This is a performance that I think is extremely layered and extremely emotional. And I think that it's just some of the best acting in the last few years of film that I've seen in Fandom films. So definitely Ewan McGregor and Christopher Robin.
All right, cool. Over to Nazario now for your opening statement. What do you feel is the best performance in a Disney live-action remake?
This is actually a very hard question to define because people see performances very, very different. I think Rami Malek in last year's Oscars can attest to that. But I think for something that already exists, if you're going to do a reinterpretation of it, you have to embody the iconic character that you're going to play. And I think in all of the Disney remakes, the only one that stands out is Angelina Jolie in Maleficent. Not only she brings her acting abilities, her projection, her presence to the role. At some points in the film, she actually embodies the character so much that you forget that she's not the original version of Maleficent. She brings a lot of gravitas and presence to a story that could have been done very badly, and it makes you care for somebody who is inherently evil just because of the weight of how she performs it. So, to me, by far, this is the best performance in a live-action film.
All right. Both ending with a few seconds to spare. We now go into the freeform. I reiterate, gentlemen, back and forth, pendulum. Say what you rebut what you have to rebut, attack we got to attack, and then get out of there, let the other person in. 5 minutes, guys. You know the drill.
So I don't think Maleficent is a very good movie for a couple of reasons. And I think that's mainly because Angelina Jolie is so flat in the movie, and her character doesn't have layers to the performance. The character doesn't have an arc. She is mad at Charlotte Copley in the first 5 minutes of the movie, and she's mad at Charlotte Copley 2 hours later. Like, it's not a performance that has a lot of layers. It's not a performance that really carries a lot of weight, as opposed to Ewan McGregor, where you really see that innocence, that character, like the theme. I'm going to use the buzzword. The themes of that movie are embodied through the physicality and the performance of Ewan McGregor.
So the first point, we're not talking which movie is the best. We're talking what performance is the best. And yes, she does have an arc. She starts very innocent until she's betrayed by a man, which turns her into a bitter, dark character, which is the Maleficent that we all know. And she carries out this presence by doing the most evil thing she can do as her revenge. And then you can see her grow throughout the film as how she changes from that person who was also consumed by grief and darkness and revenge, while she starts caring for the little girl that she already cursed. And that is very, very deep in her character turn, because she goes from trying to kill this girl as revenge, as caring enough for her that to regretting why she did the curse in the first place. Ewan McGregor in Christopher Robin is just Ewan McGregor, like in every other movie. He doesn't bring anything special to the performance.
That's not true at all. He brings everything to this performance. Every second of this movie, he spends the first part of this movie as a beaten down, broken man who's trying to salvage what's left of his family and his life. And he ends the movie with a sense of imagination again, a sense of awe and wonder at the world. And that's exactly what you see in a layered performance. This is not Ewan McGregor in every other Ewan McGregor movie at all. This is something extremely special from him, especially...
He has done way better performance. You can tell, because
we're not talking about which actor has done better performances before, though. We're not talking about which actor has done better performances before. We're talking about what is the best performance.
Knowing the capabilities of this actor,
Nazario, you gotta.
We're talking about what performance is the best performance in Disney live action remake, and I'm saying Ewan McGregor. It's not what a Ewan McGregor performance is better. It's he is the best in this movie. If you were talking about the physical embodiment of a character, you could have gone with Lily James, you could have gone with Emma Watson, you could have gone with Dan Stevens, you could have gone with Richard Madden. Those are 4 more that physically embody the animated character better than Angelina Jolie does.
If you are talking about embodying Christopher Robin, he's not.
I'm not making that argument.
He's not even the best British choice to make this role. You could get Nicholas Hoult, or you could get Domhnall Gleeson, who actually played A.L. Min in a closer image to what an adult Christopher Robin would be than Ewan McGregor. I grew up on Winnie the Pooh. If you take the image of Winnie the Pooh outside of the movie and you just shot the performance by Ewan McGregor, you could never tell that's Christopher Robin. He plays the character as straight as he ever could. Is the most average performance he has done in a while, and you can never tell that is supposed to be that innocent, imaginative kid from the movies. He doesn't even go there in the end of the movie, where he's supposed to already have recovered all his imagination. Angelina Jolie turns in the movie from a good character to a dark character and back again, until she can show love for the person that she was willing to kill enough to save her.
So the two specific scenes I'm going to point out that show why you're absolutely wrong about Ewan McGregor's Christopher Robin performance are when he is on the tree stump talking to Pooh right before the end of the movie. You see all of his emotions flood forward as he says, like, I'm sorry I gave up on you. Like, I am sorry that I grew up before I was ready. I'm sorry that I tried to be an adult before I was ready. That is Christopher Robin. And the second scene is the boardroom scene where he's like, you know what? These are my ideas. The very best nothing is something about the best something, right? That is Christopher Robin finding out that you can take boredom, you can take nothingness, and turn it into the most joyful expression of enjoyment of life. Left. And that is what Christopher Robin is about. Again, I'm not talking about which Ewan McGregor performance is better. I'm not talking about who you could have cast in this movie. That's not what the argument is whatsoever. It's about what the best performance.
And why did you give 4 people that could appear as?
Because your specific argument was that she embodies the character the best.
She does.
And I put 4 that embody the character better as well.
One scene is when she realizes her wings are cut, and you can see the pain in her soul. You can see her turning from this innocent fairy into the creature that just seeks out to be revenged. The whole scene where she curses the girl and she shows Stefan that she's still there and she still matters, it's so powerful that it turns the whole movie around. And then when you realize that it's not the prince who's going to save the Sleeping Beauty, the Aurora, that is going to be the love that she grew up having for her from afar after she cursed her, is what makes her character whole. It's a beautiful turn, and it's embodied because of the Angelina performance.
All right. Better back and forth. Not great, but better. We're going to go down into the closing arguments. I'm going to start off with Nazario on this one. Not who gets your point. Wrap up your argument accordingly and present it to the lovely judges.
Like I said at the beginning, performances are very hard to judge, and everybody sees it through their own eyes. I grew up with Winnie the Pooh, not only the books, but the cartoons from the early Disney's era. I have a very vivid image to what Christopher Robin is. And what Ewan McGregor, I thought he was going to be able to pull it. I don't feel he pulled it. He was always Ewan McGregor trying to act this way. It never convinced me. Angelina Jolie convinced me she was Maleficent in all the way she turned around in the film, especially that scene when she curses the girl and she just laughs, portraying the evil nature that she was. And the story then takes a turn and turns her into the savior of the princess. It's a complete art, and it's so powerful that it makes you give the movie that it doesn't have a great script even a second look because it's that strong.
Time. All right, over to Robert for your closing arguments and to wrap up the question.
Angelina Jolie's turn at the end of that movie is in the last 15 minutes, and there's a whole 2 hours previous that is just a flat performance. You've nitpicked a few scenes. I'm talking about the performance throughout the entirety of the film, from the beaten down broken man, all through him trying to build a relationship with his daughter, all through his interactions with his childhood imaginary friends, throughout the entirety of the film. That is a perfect emotional layered performance, which is not something Angelina Jolie has. The reason I brought up the 4 names is because your main point was embodying the character that you had imagined. Those were 4 people who did it better. I'm not talking about casting. I'm not talking about what Ewan McGregor performance, if he's just himself. No, this is a different Ewan McGregor. It's a true layered performance of the character, and that emotion acting against CGI characters is what makes it the best.
All right. Good question, guys. Like I said, not the best back and forth, but it was much improved as opposed to the last one. We're now going to go to the judges for their decision. Going to start off with that little bitch, Kaleb Koho. Can I call you a little bitch? No, we're not.
No. I'm going to threaten physical violence now.
All right, cool. But who gets your point and why?
But I'm gonna go with Robert on this one. I think Robert did a better job of selling me on why Ewan McGregor's performance is better and matters more to his film, whereas Nazario tried really, really hard to get me there, but I think Robert just kept pushing him down on points, and Nazario had to do a lot more defense, and his defense kept him from attacking Ewan McGregor outside of he's just doing Ewan McGregor. So I have to give my point to Robert.
Okay. Boatman, who gets your point and why?
Yeah, I'm giving it to Robert for basically the same reason. Nazario had the good point of, if it was a different movie, you wouldn't know it was Christopher Robin, but then Robert kind of defended against that and pointed out 2 specific scenes, so I'm giving it to Robert.
All right. So Robert does get the point. I probably would have given it to Robert as well. I think it was really, I think this is a really good clash of Angelina Jolie really embodies the character as opposed to Ewan McGregor really evokes what Chris and Robin is all about, and I think that's what won me over personally. I could see Nazario's passion as a passionate debater myself. I could see that passion, but just a little short. All right, guys, we are now going to move into the speed round portion of the match. Robert does have the edge 2-1, so he only needs one question to win. How speed round's going to work is there is a 40-second opening followed by a 30-second rebuttal. Once I complete the question, you will speak your answer. If I hear you first, you will go first. Once again, 40-second opening followed by a 30-second rebuttal. Robert, you do have the edge in this, so you do need the one question to win. But let's get right into it. This first speed round question was predetermined. And it is in the category of Rockies, and your question is as follows. Who is the best side character in the Rocky/Creed franchise?
Mickey.
Apollo.
All right, so we have Mickey up against Apollo. I did hear Mickey first. Robert, you have 40 seconds. The time begins when you start talking.
Mickey is a character that steals every single scene he's in. Every single time that Rocky is about to give up or wants to let go or stop chasing his passion, Mickey is the one who gets him back into him every single time. He's his trainer. After his death haunts Rocky more than anybody's of the entire series, including Apollo. Because if we're talking to Rockies 5 and 6, who is Rocky hearing over and over again in flashbacks and weird scenes, it's Mickey. Mickey is the most impactful character on Rocky as a character. Mickey's the most impactful person in the series, as a side character at least. And Burgess Meredith gives a very, very good performance. And yeah, I'm with that. That was really bad. Sorry.
Okay. All right, over to Nazario for your portion with the opening.
I think over the whole arc of the whole series, Apollo becomes the most important person in Rocky's life. He goes from being the guy who gave him a chance to the guy who challenged him to be the best, and then who picks him up after Mickey's death, which is an important death, but it's still, he needs to be picked up and life moves on. When he dies in part 4, he blames himself for the rest of the series. It's a very heavy reason why he brings Adonis in the Creed films, and he decides to redeem himself through helping the child of the man he couldn't save. And this comes full circle with the Creed 2, with the bringing back the Drago family into it, because that is what scarred him. It scarred both of them.
All right, both competitors leaving time on opening safe. It's a very interesting approach. I think I Nerdgasm first. But let's go over to the rebuttals now, starting with Robert.
The question was best, and Apollo isn't really a character you like in Rocky 2. He's the villain of that movie. He ousts Rocky. He's a horrible, horrible, horrible friend. Adrian is the one who picks Rocky up after Mickey's death, not Apollo. Apollo is definitely a character that is central to the story, but when it comes to the actual impact on the characters themselves, not on the overall franchise story, when it comes to the character moments, it's got to be Mickey. Mickey is a far more impactful character on the emotions of the greater characters in the story.
All right, and over to Nazario to finish the question.
You don't have to be a good character to be the best character. He goes from being a jerk, to being an asshole, to becoming somebody who wants to pick him up first for his own selfish reason. He just wants a third fight, but then he actually becomes his friend. And yes, he picks him up. He gives him back the eye of the tiger after he doesn't want to even fight anymore. And his death is so significant that it carries over to the rest of the film. Mickey is an important character, but only lasts for a pretty short part of the series. Apollo's ghost haunts the whole 8-movie epic.
Okay, that was really interesting. I'd say of the panel here, I am the least knowledgeable in Rocky, so this is really based on arguments for me. I'm gonna go with Robert on this one. I think Robert really kicked it in the second gear in his rebuttal, and sort of really hammering home any sort of attack or any sort of anything that Nazario really had. I think Nazario was really balanced out in terms of opening and rebuttal, but I think Robert's rebuttal won it over for me. But I'm not alone here. I'm going to go over to Kaleb Koho, who gets your point and why.
Robert had this fight for me for much of it. But I think Nazario in that rebuttal area kind of covered a lot of the bases that Robert had trying to preemptively cover. With how Apollo has more of that we don't like him, then we like him, and how it haunts past 5 and 6, which Robert covered Mickey up to 5 and 6. So I think slightly Nazario is where I'm going to go. Slightly Nazario.
Well, very similar to question 1. We are tied yet again. Boatman, you are here to break the tie. Who gets your point and why?
Yeah, I'm also giving it to Nazario this time. I think Nazario kind of painted the entire picture of the arc and how Apollo kind of has an important impact in all the Rocky films. So I'm giving the point to Nazario.
Well, it is a tie ball game. Overtime solves nothing. Everybody take a drink. We are going to a shootout, a.k.a. the last speed round question in the match. This is a question that was not determined by either competitor. This is one that was determined by the judges to give us a nice balanced question. Balance is all things should be. And your question, gentlemen, is as follows. The category of James Bond. What is the most overrated James Bond film?
Oh, man. Skyfall.
Skyfall. That's what I heard first.
GoldenEye.
GoldenEye. All right. All right, Robert, heard you first. So you're going to have 40 seconds. My apologies. Time begins when you start talking.
Skyfall is a movie that is great, but it is even still overrated. It is hailed as perfect, and it is not. This movie has flaws both in its storytelling devices, specifically when they're at Macau, and Bond is visiting with the girl who I can't remember her name. But there are a lot of moments in this movie that are hailed as perfect, but they're very overrated. The fact that Bond, who fails his psychiatric and his physical tests early in the film, later in the film is able to do the things he does with perfection, like he's back to the Bond of old. That turnaround is too quick. There are a lot of small details in this movie that make it not brilliant. It is still a very, very good movie, but it is not perfect. GoldenEye is innovation in the franchise.
All right. Over to Nazario for your opening arguments.
GoldenEye is credited with bringing the series back. And I actually do not think that is correct because the series never really went away. The series has been very continuously from the 1960s. It also introduced Pierce Brosnan, who for a while there was hailed as the perfect embodiment of Bond, which we can now say that he was pretty mediocre Bond along the whole his whole 4 movies. I think Daniel Craig is actually a way better Bond. And this movie gets a lot of credit in the mid-90s. They're having innovation and action and doing things that haven't been done before, which they end up being surpassed just the next year by Mission Impossible, which ended up being the better of the 2 films and the better spy franchise, in my opinion, in the future.
All right, over to the rebuttals now. Back to Robert, 30 seconds.
No idea what Mission Impossible has to do with an overrated Bond. The fact is, at the time, Pierce Brosnan was the perfect Bond. He still is. Incredibly innovative action. It's still a very good movie. Overrated does not mean bad. Skyfall is not a bad movie. It's a very, very, very good movie. It's still overrated in the community and the movie watching space. People hail it as one of the best action films ever made, and it is not. I've given specific examples as to why it is not, why those small moments make it overrated. GoldenEye is a very, very good breathes life back into the franchise. It is hailed for exactly what it's supposed to be. It's not overrated. It is perfectly rated.
Time. All right. Nazario, over to you.
You mentioned that GoldenEye breathed new air into the franchise. I think Casino Royale did that way better. It's a way better movie, and that actually changed the franchise and instilled new life into it. Skyfall is actually hailed as the best of the Daniel Craig series, which actually it is, which in turn makes it one of the best movies in the whole franchise, which I don't understand how you can be overrated if you are widely recognized in quality as one of the best. Unless you want to be an naysayer. GoldenEye is a very standard action movie from the 90s. Doesn't have anything that is surprising, and it gets a lot of credit for doing something that it didn't really do.
Time. Okay, that was the back and forth. Let's go over now to the judges for their decision. Boatman, I'm going to go in first with you. Who gets your point and why?
This was close. I'm gonna say Robert just pulled it out there. I think that there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of points being made, but I think that Robert kind of hit that Pierce Brosnan was kind of the best Bond for that time period, and that he kind of shut down a lot of Nazario's arguments. And so yeah, I'm giving the point to Robert.
Once again, I'm gonna go next, and I'm gonna disagree with Kaleb. Oddly enough, Robert's rebuttal won the question for me last round. Robert's rebuttal lost him the point this round, in my opinion. I think he had ample opportunity to really get something, and I just found his rebuttal really redundant, whereas I think Nazario was able to come in and just take whatever Robert didn't have and just sort of add on to his. So he gets my point. But Kaleb, Mr. Koho, the floor is yours. Who gets your point and why?
I don't think this fight was actually that close. I think Robert had it. I think Robert in his opening explained why overrated doesn't mean bad and pointed out the exact points why Skyfall is overrated. And Nazario had a lot of really good beginnings to arguments and then just kind of got lost in like the weeds of Mission Impossible and Casino Royale, and Robert kind of shut those down in his rebuttal pretty quickly. So I'm going to give mine to Robert.
All right, gentlemen, that means that your winner, advancing on to a number one contenders match, is the Hobbit, Robert Parker. 3-2. I think with the exception of the live action question, every question was a split decision. So this is probably the most split decision match that we've ever had. But we're going to go now to our competitor, starting off with our winner, Robert. Robert, you came right out of the gate, got that first point in Star Wars, and then you had the advantage going into the speed round, knowing that Rocky, I would say probably an admitted weakness or one of the lower tier categories for fandom. How do you feel with that advantage going into a Rocky speed round question?
Not great. I mean, I've seen all the Rocky films at least, so I knew I had at least some stuff to lean on, but I for sure didn't think I was gonna win that point. And then obviously James Bond again, not like a strength by any means. As soon as they said overrated, I'm like, it'd be weird if I talked about Skyfall right now. Let's just do it. Full send. And it turned out to work. But Nazario definitely has a very unique fighting style. He's different from anybody I've ever faced in Nerdgasm, and I am positive that he's gonna like kick ass and keep going. He's a very, very smart competitor to fight against. So it's a lot of fun, and I'm very glad that I was here today. And now I need a nap because I'm ill.
To give you one more question here, your number one contenders match, like I said previously, is going to be the culmination of the rookies that debuted in the beginning of season 2 and have advanced on. So you would have your likes of some great new British Empire representation in Kaleb Boatman and Jacoby Bancroft. Joe Harrison is also one as well, and Matthew Rosa, a cornucopia of some rising prospects in debate.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to pick, who would you want to go up against?
Want to is different because I want them wins easier. I think certain of those competitors would be easier for me to beat than others. The one that I think I would enjoy facing the most, because our debate styles are so wildly different, is Boatman. I think him and I debate extremely differently, and I think that difference in style would be something worth watching.
All right. Well, congratulations and best of luck to you in your number one contenders match coming up. But we now have to go to our unfortunate loser, Nazario. Nazario, like I said, right after the match, this is probably the best example of a literal split decision. Only the one question was won by unanimous decision. I think you are definitely the calmest debater, and that is a talent that I am envious of, because I think a lot of people need that talent, and you use it so graciously, and you're just able to sort of flow with it, and you don't let things get the best of you. So I applaud you with that. How do you feel about your performance?
I think the rust showed. I haven't been like consistently doing debate for a few months now. I was more in a groove the last time I played when I faced him, and of course it kind of gets to you. And I'm gonna be honest. I'm glad I finally broke the ice with Boatman. The man has been a judge in matches I debated at least 3 times, and this is the first time he ever gives me a freaking point. So, that's what I'm gonna take away from this match. I have to say, Robert is good. He just throws a lot of stuff at you, and he nitpicks so much. He goes so much into the technicality and shit that I think it kind of hazes what the question is. He tries to turn it away. He tries to change direction, and you have to try to keep it straight in a narrow what you're actually arguing. But I guess sometimes it works, and you get distracted, and you stop making the points you actually have to hit. So I think for a comeback match after such a long time, it was okay. Probably should have done better. And I really, really wish that the last question was not in a franchise like James Bond, where I haven't seen half the films. I haven't even watched freaking Skyfall. So I was arguing against a ghost movie here because I have nothing to throw at him. But, it's the way the dice rolls, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go over to the judges now for their thoughts. Going to start off with Kaleb Boatman. How did you feel with the match?
Yeah, well, I think Nazario is accurate with the strategy of Roberts as you described. I believe Cody calls that "make you fight my fight." I might be paraphrasing there, but that's Robert's strategy, and that can be a tough strategy if you're not prepared for it. But it was a good fight all around. All my decisions were very, very close for the most part. So it was a good fight. As far as Robert saying that he would love to challenge me, I would agree. I hope I can make it there because I think that'd be a lot of fun. That'd be a very interesting match. We'll see if it actually happens. Sometimes I choke when I've got my eyes set on something. So we'll see.
Right. And Kaleb Koho, your thoughts on the match?
I think it was a really strong fight. Both of these guys are really good at it. They've proven it time and time again. I think we play this debate 7 matches. It goes to match 7. Honestly, that's how close these two can go. I'm excited to see what Robert does. I'm excited to see what Nazario does. It's going to be fun to see where they go from here.
Yeah. I think despite the lack of or the filibustering-ish in the general prep round, I think there was a really, really good back and forth. I think there was no half-assing any questions really. I think both competitors really brought what they could. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what Robert could do with another number 1 contenders match. Will he able to re-challenge for that belt, or will one of the rookies just come up from the bottom and then now be eventually there? As a very awkward paraphrasing of a Drake song. But with that awkwardness, we're going to close out the show. I do want to thank our judges and our competitors today. For Robert, for Nazario, for both Kalebs. I am your host of Black and Broken Veil. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe on Multiplex, on YouTube, Facebook. Be sure to check out tpublic.com/Multiplex, where you can find great shirts like this and a plethora of others. But cheers, guys, and as always, drive safely.
Started from the bottom, now we are eventually made it have here.